So Chazal talking in the Midrash about bina yetira nitna b'nashim, that women have more bina than men. It doesn't mean to say that only women have bina; they have more. But the question is, what is bina, right? That is, but okay. But bina is a type of understanding of wisdom of something. Okay, so it talks about specific things, and we'll have to figure out what they mean. But it also says the opening of Mishlei obviously is a whole. It seems like a father convincing his son that wisdom is the path to go, and don't go astray after many things that might fool you, and you might think that life is about having fun, that life is about, because that will take you down to nowhere, that will end you, but rather you should follow wisdom. And it's interesting that wisdom and the opposite of wisdom are both compared to women in the book, right? At the very end of Mishlei, we have a very, very famous part of Mishlei, right? We all know a good chunk of Mishlei, which is Eshet Chai, right? The song of Eshet Chai is actually from Mishlei. Eshet Chai Mimtza v'chok mipnei micha. So first of all, it's a song about a woman of valor. That's for sure, and it means what it literally means. But it's also an allegory. We could also understand it in an abstracted way, that it's talking about, given the context and what Sefer Mishlei generally speaks about, it's talking about wisdom. And the question is then how exactly to understand Eshet Chayil in that context as talking about wisdom. But it's talking about wisdom. And when it talks about the anti-wisdom, then it talks about the bad woman. Yes, the dark side, someone that will seduce someone and take him off the path and to the wrong place, right? Isha ra'ah. So there is the good woman, which is wisdom, and then there is the bad, which are all of the other things in life that basically take us astray, that take us off the path, which is the path of wisdom. So the right path in life is the path of wisdom, and the wrong path is any other path, which is not the path of wisdom. But what I want to try and give a few minutes to is what is a mashal? What is a mashal? When we talk about meshalim, what do we mean? So today in modern Hebrew, a mashal means something like an allegory, right? Parable. I say something, but it's like it's one story from which I could derive something else. Right? So I'm telling you a story about X, but actually I mean Y, and for various reasons I'll do it in that way. Maybe because X means more to you, and then or is more tangible, and therefore you could understand it better than if I use the actual Y which I'm referring to. Okay. But that is usually what a mashal is, and it very well could be that some of the mishalim in Mishlei also are that type of mashal, but most Mishlei is not those types of mishalim, but something else. And the question is, what is a mashal? So if we look generally in Tanakh and try to find out what are mishalim, so this is a question that you must know the answer to, and that is, where else in Tanakh right now, off the top of your head, are we talking about mishalim? Now, why am I saying you must know the answer? Because once you hear the answer, you realize you have to know it. Hint, you have to know it because of the time we're standing in. Okay. And it has to do with something that was read in shul.
Are you talking about Chidot, like Shlomo with Sheba?
No. Okay, Parashat HaShavua.
I'm thinking Tachlon.
Oh, no, Parashat HaShavua. Last week's Parashat Shavua and this week's Parashat Shavua both have Mishalim. Isn't that? I saw that. I said, "Wow, this is divine providence, right?"
It is.
This is we're starting Mishlei, and the Shabbat before and the Shabbat after, the Torah talks about Mishalim. We're in last week. Okay, last week is a bit more difficult because it doesn't say mashal; it says something else. But right, there are parts of last week's Parashat Shavua that are like in the style of Mishlei, sort of Proverbs. Al ken yomru hamoshlim, bo cheshbon tibane v'tikonen ir sichon. Ki esh yatsa misichon. We have Al ken yomru hamoshlim. Who are the moshlim? We usually understand moshlim are rulers, but here it probably doesn't mean rulers. It means those who make mishalim. Because if you read the words later, they're the style of Sefer Mishley. It's like a certain style of writing, right? It's like, I won't say what it is right now, right? Yes, very good. We'll get to it. I don't want to say now because okay, in modern Hebrew it's called shira, that type of writing of.
But you're not speaking of the Shira and the Parsha.
No, I'm not.
That's not.
So right. So we'll get to it in a moment. Okay. Then next week, what are we reading next week?
Balak.
Okay. And there, hu vayisa meshalo vayomar, right? Bilam, at some point, he's noseh a mashal. And then he says something. And there he also says ta 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 ta. Okay. It's the best way to describe what a mashal is in Tanakh is probably poetry.
Yeah.
Poetry. We have that al ken yomru hamoshlim, and then we have poetry, and we have vayisa meshalo vayomar, and then we have Bilam also saying poetry, right? So mashal could refer to the style of saying something. So I'm saying something, but I'm not just saying it. So it could be a prayer. It could be even prophecy. Sometimes in the Tanakh, mishalim have to do with prophecy. Sometimes they have to do with blessing someone, and sometimes they have to do with cursing someone. Sometimes it is praise. Sometimes it is rebuke. Sometimes it is many things. But the theme that seems to tie in all these places where mashal comes to play is that they're all poetry. So first of all, mashal is a style by which to say things. So when we say mishlei chachamim v'chidutam, it's the literature of the wise, meaning the wise when they say something or when they write it, they say it in a certain style that you need to learn that style. Now what's so special about poetry? Why is that? So it's easy. Intuitively we understand why poetry has to do with wisdom, right? It's like saying something, but it's saying it in a special way. We'll have to work out what's that special way, but it's a certain style. So first of all, Mishlei, I think that's what it means. So we have a book that is the book of Meshalot, a book which is written in a very poetic way. But now going back to Tehillim is also written in a poetic way. So why not call Tehillim is also Meshalot? What would you say the difference between Tehillim and Mishlei is? Before you answer, I want to give this question some more context, and that is there are 3 big books in Ketuvim. Ketuvim is made of a few books, but there are 3 big books. What are the big books? So one of them is Mishlei, one of them is Tehillim, and another one, which we're also going. No, so Divrei Yamim is more like it stands to itself, because Divrei Yamim is like the history of everything. No, it's not so big.
Not so big.
Sorry? Daniel. No, not Daniel. Daniel also stands sort of. Eov.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now these 3 books are books that they don't like. Unlike the other books of the Torah, they don't do with they're not so much about history, not so much about rules and law, mitzvot, what we would call classic Torah, right? But they're special in their own way. They stand to right. They stand to themselves. But they're different. Each one of them has its own uniqueness. So these are now. What is very interesting, the Rashi Tevot of Iyov, Mishlei, and Tehillim is Emet. Okay, so that's something interesting to bear in mind, right? So the book of Iyov, which we didn't get to yet.
We could skip them.
Iyov is one of the most interesting books in
I've done it.
Tanakh. It's devastating,
Yeah.
but interesting in the same time. Well, when we'll learn it, we'll see.
Okay, that'll be a different experience, I hope.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe not.
May have to
I
find
mean,
out.
Eov, it was a terrible experience to Eov. So if you are able to empathize with him as we read it, well, that's wonderful. But so Eov is what would you say Eov is about? With even though we didn't learn it yet, but we know more or less the story, right?
I would say the relationship of man to God.
Right, the relationship of man to God, but in a specific
Tova Ra,
through a specific
Good things.
lens.
Bad things happening to good people.
Okay, bad things happening to God to good people, but through the lens of the relationship of the people with God, right? Like what does Hashem want from us when He does us all these bad things? Yeah, well, what is it that we're right? What is it that we're supposed
We don't
to
know.
make about it? Yeah, that's
That's
sort
the
of the end, but maybe there's more to it. We'll see it when we get there. But okay, so that Tehillim is about something similar, right? It's also about my relationship with Hashem, but somehow different. In what sense?
Well, they're all different themes. Some of them, they're all little poems.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are praises, and some of them are diatribes, and some of them are pleas, and some of them are comments on history, and they're all little self-contained.
Right. But if
They also connect.
if I would have to like give one sort of head to the book of Tehillim, what would it be? Hmm?
To feel.
Hope. Okay, in most of them. Most.
Praise Hashem.
Praise Hashem. Many of them praise Hashem. That's true. Okay, let's keep it there and move on to. We'll come back to it. Sorry. Okay. The kingdom of heaven in the positive sense. Okay, sounds very Christian. But it's,
Malchut Shamayim in a more negative sense.
or maybe in a more complex, difficult to understand sense. Okay. And when I get to Mishlei, we just started. We didn't yet get to the meats and bones. But what would you say Mishlei is about?
Words of wisdom, right?
Torah.
Little epithets.
Torah. It mentions the word Torah very few times, and it's.
The idea
We'll
that
have
it's
to-
like
we'll have
Musar
to-
Dick, you know.
Oh, okay. Musar Dik is a sort of good way of putting it, but we'll try.
It's life
Let's
lessons.
I'm sorry?
It's life's lessons to pass on to your children how to. He
Okay.
did it, and he's
Oh, good.
Yes. So how to live life, how to live the good life. Let's call it the good life. Right? The Greeks had what they called the good life. The good life means the balanced life, the best life. Right? So I have many paths in front of me. All kinds of paths would take me to terrible places, and then I have one path that is the good life. That's the best life possible.
Sounds like the introduction to a sermon.
Uh-huh. The beginning of Mishlei.
Yes. I know.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody
And
knows
then when you get into Mishlei, you see it might sound like a sermon, but a very long one. And one that has no beginning and no end, and it just runs into each other. And like a sermon of a rabbi who got up with not knowing what he's about to say. Yeah. Yes.
You were with me with Shani Tarragon and Mishlei? Years ago?
No.
No.
Uh-huh.
First
Okay.
She's
edition.
Oh, very good. So I think if we try to like work out Yov and Mishlei and Tehillim, they all have to do one way or another with our lives as people, for sure. But Yov has to do with our relation to Hashem, with especially trying to understand like what Hashem wants, like how do I respond to Hashem? Meaning Hashem keeps on doing all kinds of things to me, and some of them are good, but many of them are not good. And how am I supposed to react in it, like how am I supposed to live in that sense? And Tehillim also have to do with my relationship to Hashem, but also it's not so much of what am I supposed to do, but it's with my immediate reaction to Hashem. Like Hashem, you did this. This is wonderful, great, and I praise you. Or things are going really wrong. Hashem, things are terrible. Please help me. And then it's a sort of an instinctive knee-jerk reaction to where I am right now, and I'm turning to Hashem and okay. Now I might also mention, like, it's not like Chalila v'chas, someone that sees only the here and now and that's it. I might mention the whole entire history of Am Yisrael when I'm praying to Hashem. But at the end of the day, it all culminates in here right now, and something that I either need or something that I feel I want to say. Something, it's about expressing my emotional relationship with Hashem. So if I would look at, so Iyov is more of a existential relationship with Hashem. It's not so much about emotion. It's more about the state of being. It's in one sense it's even more than emotion. In another sense, it might be less than an emotion. It depends how we look at it. Because emotion, on the one hand, is something that is really, really, it's an expression of my gut. It's like there's nothing stronger than an emotion. On the other hand, something which is, we might call existential, I might not feel emotionally about it right now, okay? But it's something that really bothers me, and bothers me in a sense that really shakes the foundations of my being. So not in the sense that it makes me right now, I can't breathe, or wow, I'm overjoyous, or I'm depressed. It's not strong in that sense, but it is it's strong in the sense that it talks about something that is really essential to what makes me tick. Do you understand the
So an
difference?
intellectual niggling at you.
Yes. So it's intellectual on the one hand, so it's less. Sorry, what?
Like these policies right now.
Yes.
They give us an uneasy feeling.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily. It's
on a
not.
personal level.
Yes. Okay.
Give us an
Okay.
uneasy
That's an example. Could be. So you say so. But you understand what I'm saying, right? Like something which is emotional is very strong in the sense that it grabs me right now, and in that sense, it's stronger than just this intellectual sense of something, but on the other hand, something could be less emotional but more existential, and in that sense, so if I'm talking about Iyov is because I'm not Iyov, and when I'm reading Iyov is not the one telling the story. We read the story as objective viewers, meaning the purpose of this book is to make us think about something that bothers us, something that we grapple with and we want to understand, because it's very difficult to live life when we know these things, and how should we react to them. And there, when we will get to Yov, we will see different answers how to deal with this question. He has his leYom, his different friends, and then at the end there is the friend that has the best answer, and then at the very, very end there is Hashem, who comes with a vision and gives a whole new different way of seeing things. But the whole book is grappling with this situation. The book of Tehillim is also grappling with some situations, but smaller situations, not necessarily, doesn't give us a whole story of an intellectual thing, but it's my emotional connection to Hashem expressed in many ways. So emotion on one hand is stronger, but existential is also okay. But now Mishlei, what is Mishlei about? The mem in the middle of the emet. Okay, right. When you think about it, the symbolism here is really saying emet is aleph is the right. First of all, truth, right? Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. Taf is the last letter of the alphabet. Mem sits right in the middle. So Mishlei somehow has to sit right in the middle of Tehillim and Iyov, perhaps.
It seems that Tehillim and Iyov are basically talking about man's relationship with Hashem, whereas Mishlei is talking about man's relationship with his fellow man and with himself.
Okay, I think you are right, but it goes even further. I think it goes even further. You're right. Mishlei mentions Hashem a lot, but not in the same way as Iyov and Tehillim. That it's all about my relation. Meaning, the book of Iyov is totally unnecessary. If Hashem is taken out of the equation, then the book of Iyov has no meaning. It's just a story about someone who went through a very bad life. Okay, what can you do? People go through bad lives. What makes the story is that there is Hashem, and who can do everything and wants to, and I believe is good, and still this could happen. That is the whole thing of how could this story happen when there is Hashem, right? That is the whole story about. That is the whole thing about, right? Yes. So right, why? How could terrible things happen in the world? That's the whole thing of the story. In Tehillim also, I take out Hashem of the equation. There is no book of Tehillim because all of it has to do with praising Hashem, with asking Hashem for help. It's all about our relationship with Hashem. You take out Hashem, there's nothing there. If we take out Hashem from Mishlei, Hashem is mentioned many times in Mishlei, but if we take him out, then Hashem is still there. I'm sorry. Then what?
Still a book.
It's still a book. It's still a book, and might still make sense in a way. So this is one of the things that makes Mishlei so unusual to the Tanakh, and that is that it speaks about something that is not at least not a direct relationship with Hashem.
Like Megillah Esther, though, is still.
But even in Megillat Esther, Megillat Esther is a bit different, but we might talk about it when we'll get there. But Mishlei speaks about wisdom. Okay, but I want to talk about what makes wisdom. How is this mem, the Mishlei, the wisdom, related to the aleph and the taf, to the existential and the emotional? I think
There's a golden path. It's sort of like the middle golden path. So if you follow that middle path of Mishlei, you won't live on the extremes. You'll live an emes and a nice life.
I think you're spot on, but I want to say it slightly differently, but I think it's the same thing that you said, and that is, I think we could get caught with thoughts about existence and just get carried away and say things like everything is doomed and there's no hope, and even if there is Hashem, look what life is like Iyov, etc. I could get all emotional about things that it might take me to a good place or a bad place, but both my intellect and my emotions can take me to very bad places, and those bad places are the bad woman that Mishlei warns us of. Mishlei says, don't go after the bad ones, go after the good one. The good woman is meaning the wisdom is what collects everything together. It utilizes both the intellect and the emotions in a way, and weaves something of substance of them, and makes something a path that we are able to live life. Because when we look at the way mean, throughout history, there were different schools of thoughts. We look around us, we see different people live their lives in different ways. Sometimes people go astray because of their emotions. They're just too emotional. They don't control their emotions. They just get carried away, and they have no sense of like controlling themselves in some way that they're able to make sense of their life or control their life. Sometimes you have people who are very rational, very intellectual. You say, oh, that's better. But then they could go take that to a very extreme way. They become all rational, all intellectual, and just see things in such a way that basically analyzes life out of existence. There is, sorry?
Robotic.
Yes. And in the middle, you have what Mishlei, I think, is it's a way of basically wisdom is a way of making sense of everything that we have. It's basically reaching a certain sense of balance. And what Mishlei is saying, before, when we want to have when we have, of course, wisdom comes from Hashem, and wisdom is a connection. We're connected with Hashem through wisdom, but wisdom is more than that. Wisdom also reigns also our other ways of connecting to Hashem, of connecting to Hashem through intellect, connecting to Hashem through emotion. It all has to do with tying them together through wisdom. And I think, and maybe, and here I'm not too sure, and I'm not able to put it in words yet. Maybe when we'll get through Mishlei, I would be able to. And that I think that is why it is formed as poetry, because poetry is a very interesting way of expression, because poetry, unlike prose, doesn't have a clear narrative. It jumps a bit from here and then a bit from there, and it like ties things together. And if you really get it, then you say, aha, right? It's like something that you look at and you say, aha. It's not like a story where or an equation. We say this detail follows this detail, and then that is the outcome. And poetry is not exactly like that. It like gives you a glimpse here. It's like a fireworks sort of thing. It's like, but when it does it in that way, it makes you are sometimes able to like see things in a way that you're not able to when you are trying to like put one thing next to another. Do you get what I'm saying, or it doesn't really make sense? Let me try and give an example. On the first part of Mishlei. Before that, just real Mishlei has a few parts to it, and we'll see as we go through. It has three main parts, which mention that they are the Mishalim of Shlomo, and then it has two other main parts, which are Mishalim of other wise people, and each part has its own style. The first part is mainly an introduction where we are being convinced that wisdom is the path to take and to be careful of the other paths. Then the second part has to do more with actual wisdom, so it tells us one thing after the other. They're not necessarily connected to each other, but it's giving us many like good life
Quotes of the day.
yes, good life quotes of the day, and then it goes into something slightly deeper, and then it gives us something of other chachamim. Each part has its own thing. So I want to take something of the Okay, I'm reading from Gimel Pasuk Aleph. Start. B'ni torati al tishkach u'mitzvotai yitzor libecha ki orech yamim. So this is talking about the actual Torah. Unlike other parts of Mishnah that talk about other things, this is talking about literally keeping the Torah. It talks about keeping mitzvot, right? B'ni torati al tishkach u'mitzvotai yitzor libecha ki orech yamim u'shnot chayim v'shalom yosifu lach chesed ve'emet al ya'azucha כושרם על גרגרותיך, כותבם על לוח ליבך, ומצא חן ושכל טוב בעיני אלוקים ואדם. Now it goes on, בטח אל השם בכל ליבך, ואל בינתך אל תישען, בכל דרכיך דאהו, והוא יישר אורחותיך. אל תהי חכם בעיניך, ירא את השם וסור מרע. ריפות תהיה לשריך ושיקוי לעצמתך. Okay, what is this part about? בטח אל השם בכל ליבך ואל בינתך אל תישען. So trust Hashem with all your heart. Don't lean on your bina, on your understanding. Just a minute, you just told me to be wise. And I was saying, don't lean on your understanding. But then it explains, Bechol drachecha da'ehu, vehu yeyasher orchotecha. Know him with all your paths or all your ways, and he will already straighten out your ways. Al tehi chacham beinecha. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Yirah et Hashem, but fear God, fear God, and go away from and get away from evil. So what Mishley is saying here is that after telling us why wisdom is good, listen to the wise people and understand their meshalim, their poetry, etc. Be careful to not make it your only thing. You have to know to, like, from time to time, to know how to make leaps, to see the bigger picture, to see something which is really, to see the bigger picture, which you are not able to see just from your own eyes. So first of all, we have to understand what are the reasons. Maybe soon he'll explain. We'll be able to see it when we'll actually read it. Why not to just trust my own wisdom? Why shouldn't I be wise in my own eyes? But basically what this is saying is something that we all know from other places as well, because Chazal also tell us that, and that is that, and also Mishlei tells us, right? Reshit Chochmah, Yirat Hashem, meaning the beginning of wisdom is to have Yirat Hashem, the fear of God. What is the fear of God? Meaning there is a certain disposition that one must have even before we start researching and going into and thinking about things. The question is, what is the point I begin with? So I begin. What is my standing point that I start with? I could start with some. I'll give you an example from Parashat Shlach that we read not a long time ago. We could start the Meraglim. They come to Hashem and to Am Yisrael, and they say, we saw terrible things in the land of Israel, that it's Zochelet Yoshveahi, etc., etc. But the truth is, they didn't lie. They reported exactly what they saw, and then they're punished. And the question is, why are they punished for not lying, for saying exactly, reporting what they saw? Now, that is one question. And then another question is at the very end of Parashat Shlach, Hashem gives us mitzvah tzitzit, and he says, and say, Chazal, what does that mean? The zominut, meaning you're not allowed to think heresy. Now, that is a very strange thing to do, because how could I control my thoughts if I'm thinking heresy? So those are the thoughts that I'm having. If I don't believe in something, then I don't believe in something. If I do believe in something, I do believe. How could I control what I believe? That's not belief. It's not an emotion. It's what I'm convinced of. If I'm convinced of something, then I'm convinced of it. What can you do about it? So Hashem tells us, no, don't think those thoughts. What does that mean? So both in the Meraglim and in the Tzitzit that comes as a response to it, it seems like, God forbid, Hashem is telling us, don't say, if you think something and it's not what I want you to think, don't think it. Or if you saw something in the land of Israel, it's not what I wanted you to see, don't report about it. What do you mean? Hashem wants me to lie because that, so obviously there's something else playing a role here. And that is when the Meraglim come to Am Yisrael, back to Moshe Rabbeinu and the people, they say, they saw us as grasshoppers. Why? Because that's how we saw ourselves as grasshoppers. Meaning they came with a certain disposition. They saw what they saw because to begin with, their state of mind was a certain state of mind when they come to see what's going on in the land of Israel. So when they come back and report, it is what they saw according to their previous perspective. So Hashem says, make sure that your perspective is right before you even start looking at things. Meaning, the children of Israel just left Egypt. They're slaves. They all said, now being a slave is not easy, but it's much easier than being free. Because a slave has a master that looks after him. He doesn't have to worry where he's going to sleep tonight. Does he have a shelter? Does he have clothing? Does he have food? All of that is provided by his master. His master is responsible for his life. In return, he has to work very hard. Sometimes his master is cruel. Sometimes his master might be a fair person, and then his life is good. And I'm sure many of our Jewish ancestors had fair masters in Mitzrayim. That's why they say, we remember all the good stuff that we had in Egypt. We want to go back there. Yes, it wasn't great life, but it was okay. It was okay because someone else did. Now Hashem is telling them, listen here, in the Midbar, Am Yisrael were in sort of a rehabilitation center. So there, Hashem takes care of them. They didn't know how to take care of themselves. They were slaves. So Hashem is taking care of them in the Midbar. He gives them man, he gives them slav, he gives them water, he gives them everything that they need. Every time they complain, they get it. They don't have to work for it, right? Now the Meraglim come into the land of Israel, and all of a sudden they see, oh no, we have to work for everything. Everything is so difficult, so complicated. We won't be able to do this. V'gam anakim, we saw these giant people, giant in the sense, could be maybe they were real giants, but also giants in the sense of these are great people who can take care of themselves. But that's not us. We can take care of ourselves. We're slaves. We won't be able to survive there one day. So Hashem says, you have to think more of yourself. You came with that sort of predisposition. That is the perspective through which you see everything. So of course that is what you saw. But if that wasn't your perspective, you would have seen very different things. The same thing with Parashat Tzitzit. Hashem tells us, don't follow your emotions or your senses without understanding where they're taking you, without understanding where they're coming from and controlling it. Chazal have a very, very strong sentence about it, and that is Hareshaim birshut libam, aval hatzadikim libam birshutam. The wicked are under the spell of their own heart, but the righteous control their own heart. And that is exactly what Hashem is telling us in Parashat Tzitzit. I want you to control your heart and your eyes, and not your eyes and your heart to control you. I don't want you to be to have a it could be a certain state of mind that you're in. It could be a conceptual thing that you have, and that is how you see everything. And then everything falls under that category. It could be an emotional state. It could be an intellectual thing. It doesn't matter. Again, Yov or Tehillim. It doesn't matter, but it could take you to the wrong place. You need wisdom. Wisdom is that thing of measurement, the golden mean, where you take everything into consideration at once, where you're able to see the bigger picture. It's not easy. So it's sometimes it's not like 1 + 1 is equals 2. That's inside the picture. It's like taking a step outside of that and getting a grasp, a general grasp of okay, how things somehow, an intuitive sense of how things make sense. And that is in a great sense what the book of Mishley is about. It's about how to put into context those ideas or those matters that both Sefer Yov and Sefer Tehillim are dealing with, and to weave them into something that makes sense. And as we will go through through Mishley, Mishley, we will see what that means. So we'll end here and continue.
I love what
next
you gave
week.
to Tehillim. That's really like the gut feeling.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Have a great